Okay, well, welcome to the Vortex Energy podcast. And today we have a very, very dear old friend of mine, Jo Ablett, and she's going to talk about her work with children. And first of all, hi, Jo.
Hi, Sue.
It's good to see you again, even though everybody else can only hear us.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, so just a little bit about Jo. I've known Jo for well over 30 years now, isn't it? Been friends for many years, and come through a lot of adventures together and learnt a lot of spiritual and all that kind of stuff together and had a lovely time. And Jo was actually a teacher at the local college where I worked, near where I worked. So tell us a little bit about what made you change into working with children.
Well, I think, first of all, I'd like to say our connection led me on a path, or really sent me in a certain direction in exploring more about emotions and spirituality and so on. So I was teaching at the time. What I loved about teaching was the kids themselves, and I found that one of the biggest blocks to learning and to getting on with other people and being their best was actually emotional blocks, just not believing in themselves. So I felt really called to find out more about that. And that moved me away from teaching into psychotherapy, which I've been doing now since 1997, quite a long time. And I still love it.
So now I've worked with the emotional blocks for many years, mainly in my naturopathic practice or massage practice. It didn't matter which one. It all came back to being able to remove the blockages and help people find how to remove the blockages. And
yes.
There's obviously very many different ways, but children are a little bit more tricky to work with. And I know you first started off doing some Sandplay work. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Yes, I trained in Expressive Therapies. I qualified in 97 for my first round of training. What I found in working with Expressive Therapies and Sandplay therapy is one of the modalities of Expressive Therapies. There was a very quick and direct access to the unconscious material sitting there. So it bypassed thinking about things too much. It bypassed left mode and went straight to what was relevant and what was sitting there for children and adults alike. And I found this to be such a wonderful way of working that the answers were there for them. I wasn't directing anything. I was just holding a space for this healing process, a natural healing process to take place. So I still see evidence of that every time I work with someone. It's wonderful.
So you probably should explain for our listeners what Sandplay actually is, or Expressive Therapies.
Okay, so Sandplay has been around for quite a long time, about 80 years, and it is about selecting small figurines, and they could be even symbols from nature, rocks and shells, to express something. So I might say about somebody wanting to leave their job, for example. Or let's say a child, we're talking about children, how they're feeling about being bullied, and they might select a shell or a rock to say this represents the feeling of it. And then they create something in the sand, but generally I don't even direct it. Children will create a creation using rocks and little figurines and shells and natural things. Place that in the sand and then talk about it, share it with me, or not. There's not an expectation that they speak about it, but they generally do, and they're generally very clear about what they've created, what they want to share, and whether the symbols are literal representations or it's just a made-up story, it doesn't matter. Really, there's a richness in what they create. Does that explain that in a way that would be understood?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit like drawing. You're starting people analysing the kids' drawings and things. It's probably a similar type thing.
Yes, only there isn't any analysis of this in our approach. We don't analyse. We ask the child or the client what it means for them, and that's what I love as well. I'm not going away analysing anything. I'm saying, what do you see? How does this feel for you when they're looking at a symbol or a drawing? We use drawing as well. And, they come out with some really amazing things, children. When I'm working with them, I'm continually surprised and delighted with their deep wisdom.
Yeah, that's a much better way of doing it. We're too quick to draw conclusions and, base our analysis on statistics. And if 12 people pick that one symbol, then, they're all going to be having the same problem. But it's not like that at all. We're all just individuals, and we need to be treated as such, and we need to express what's going on inside us, not have someone say, is this happening?
Yes.
We've got to tell our own story. Wonderful.
I have, for example, on the symbol shelves, I call them, there's a dragon that's been there since I began this work, and that dragon has been used for so many different, it's represented so many different emotions for adults down to 4-year-olds, and just the delight in seeing what that means, being curious. So there's a stance, my work is with the stance of curiosity rather than a knowing, and being able to sit with that not knowing is fantastic. I train people in this as well. I train people in Sandplay therapy and expressive therapies, and that's often the most difficult thing for people to actually sit with the curiosity and creative doubt or not knowing, and seeing what arises in that child or the adult client, being guided by that. So that can be a bit uncomfortable for people to actually sit with that when they're accustomed to a different way of working.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, and it would make the children feel much more at ease and be able to express themselves a lot more easily.
The other thing that we use is the body awareness, so somatic awareness, which is also where emotions are stored, being able to connect with the body. A lot of young children who've experienced trauma have actually lost that connection with the body as a natural defence mechanism, so they don't feel the pain. But part of the work is to allow that connection in a safe way again, back to the body, back to where all of their information is. So I find that really rewarding as well for children to feel safe enough to connect and know what's happening in their body when they're working with me and when they're out in life.
Yeah, I know a lot of the work I did as a massage therapist, you would always find certain areas of the bodies, and a wonderful tool for that was myofascial release, just stretching certain areas where the emotion was physically caught up. It shows we are a complex being, and we need to treat the whole being, not just certain parts of it.
And that was a great example of what, showing where emotions or trauma were caught physically in the body, and in the whole system. Yeah, there are many different doorways into the work, but I think it's really exciting what's happening currently, what we're discovering through neuroscience, because of technology, we're able to find out a lot more now. What goes on in the brain, what goes on in the body, and how trauma in particular, that's one of my areas of interest, how trauma is stored in that way, but also how we can heal it, how we can integrate trauma.
Yeah, and this sort of brings me to another thing that I've been wondering about now with children, and the higher frequencies that are available now, and how our thinking in just about everybody is changing. I'm just wondering if you noticed much difference in the children.
Yeah, I was reflecting on that. I've noticed a lot of difference, a lot of changes, but I think they're more external. I think children, to me at the core, are still unique, amazing, wise, funny little beings. I think their external world, there's a lot of change going on. I'm just thinking my measure would be 40 years of teaching, being in schools and primary and secondary. And back when I began teaching, there'd probably be 1 or 2 children within the school with additional needs or who stood out. However, now we'd have about 3 in a classroom. So, that's quite a significant change. That's just anecdotal. And children are much more aware than we were as kids. The awareness is quite amazing. As I work with 4-year-olds. And so, yes, I am seeing a greater capacity for awareness. We also know that the information that is available to young people now is just so different. And I think that's exciting. It's not all bad. But children need a way of sort of filtering that through. So they need help from adults as to regulating what they have access to. It can be like a huge overload for their little systems, if we're not supporting them in using technology and, their interactions with others.
Or overusing technology and texting them it's time to go to bed, or it's time to clean your teeth.
There's certainly an overuse and issues that have come out of overuse of screens for sure. And just not having enough eye contact. When we think face-to-face, eye-to-eye, human-to-human contact is how children learn to attach. And if everybody's on a screen and they're not actually having that connection with parents and people around, it's changing the wiring of the brain, and it's certainly changing how they communicate and connect with others.
With the amount of texting and stuff that's going on now, that they would be losing the ability to communicate verbally, people. And again, like you say, the eye-to-eye contact, I find that very hard with some kids nowadays, and yet others are far more advanced in that way. Like some of the kids that come into our post office at St Mary's are just so polite and young adults, and I think, wow, we were never like that. So,
yes.
There's both sides of the coin there, but sometimes I just wonder how the others will communicate if they're just texting all the time.
Yes. And there's also that sort of removal of what goes on there, sort of a distance in that communication. It's a bit abstract. It's not the same as when you're actually picking up on body language and tone of voice and all of those other things that we really take in when we are communicating with someone else.
Yeah,
some kids are really missing that.
It's so easy to misinterpret, isn't it, without the nuances and the emotional feeling behind it.
And the danger, of course, for young teenagers who can now be bullied in their own bedrooms, that can come right into their safe place. That was a safe place years ago, your home. Well, generally, often it was not a safe place for everyone, but, that can invade those spaces now. So we're dealing with a lot of fallout. There are positives from it, but I also see, a lot of fallout for young people with social media and how it can affect how they feel about themselves, how they view themselves. So, and again, just taking it back to the therapeutic work, again, I use Sandplay therapy with teenagers and adults. It's not just for children. And that often helps particularly teenagers connect with themselves again and their uniqueness. And it's almost like a resetting if they have experienced some of that fallout from the social media or school, that they can get that sense of themselves again. And once they tap back into that, it's almost like there's a reset. The focus is back on themselves, away from the bullying and the difficulties. And I find that's really wonderful work too, that they can find, touch back into their uniqueness and their qualities rather than their deficits. They're reminded of by peers.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article on Facebook the other day about a school in Canada that's just thrown away their curriculum and they're now teaching them what they need to learn. It's fabulous stuff, expression and communication and all those kind of things.
Yes.
Got rid of the old curriculum altogether and they're starting anew.
Yeah.
Wonderful way to go.
And one of the things that I've always felt and believed since I started teaching when I was 20, I was quite young, but was that to follow your passion, follow, what really excites you. I found Joseph Campbell's work many, many years later, which he said, follow your bliss. And that resonated so deeply. And when children do that or young people are supported in really finding out, first of all, what that is. A lot of adults say, I don't know what it is, I haven't found it. But really supporting kids to say, how do you learn and communicate? So learning styles are so important. To know that not everyone operates the same way. Some people are very visual or kinesthetic or have a musical intelligence. So being able to say that all of the, this is your unique way of communicating and what do you love doing? That's the first step into following your passion, finding what it is you love. So Ken Robinson does a lot of this work too on, that's a pathway to the future for kids.
Yeah.
Just tracking down. Yeah, it's certainly what got me to here. That's what I think I've done. I've just followed that passion, sometimes blindly and taking leaps of faith into the unknown around the work that I ended up, sort of in this wonderful place that I'm in.
Yes, I've often thought and look back on my life and thought, how lucky have I been to have been encouraged to follow my bliss, and I always have. I've been able to do exactly what I want, and it's led me all over the world, and I've always been happy in what I'm doing. It's just a beautiful place to be, and it is how I open up and express myself. If someone talks to me about my passion, then wow, they're not going to escape for half an hour. So, but you can see how much it does open people up when you talk about their passion, and something we need to really concentrate on.
And it taps into an aliveness and vitality. I sort of know that from having our friendship for all those years, I have been privy to that and sort of seen your courage in following that passion. It takes great courage sometimes. Doesn't all just flow, and, doors don't necessarily open easily, but you kept tracking it down, and I agree with that. You've been happy in following that.
I've created hard times for myself, but I always remember a quote from The Road Less Travelled by M. Scott Peck, and he always said, courage was not the absence of fear, it was a taking of action in spite of fear. And I thought, wow, I've always had the fear there, but I've always been able to say, take a deep breath and jump in.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the only difference, you just take a deep breath and do it.
Yes, yeah, because it's almost as if that pull is stronger, that calling, that pull that you feel, I can't say anyone else, but I feel it in my body, right from the centre of my body, that pull to follow something against often all logic, but that pull helps move through that fear and do it anyway. Yeah, it's great, exciting stuff, isn't it? If we could learn that in school,
if we could help people find it in themselves and just find that courage to take that first step.
Yes,
and in following the bliss, it's easy to say from this viewpoint in my life because I've done it for 60 odd years now. So, but it doesn't matter because kids have it in them now, and if you encourage them, it's a habit.
Yes.
It becomes a habit.
And they do have it in them, and often the school curriculum and everything else is a bit boring and slow. Things that they actually have this in them. I know I spent many years wagging school, so it's quite ironic I'm back. I've been there for 40 years in a adult capacity by choice, so that makes me laugh. I couldn't tolerate school for years. I have better things to do, which we won't go into.
Well, I think that's probably given everybody a lot to think about, or I hope they have got quite a bit out of it. So when we put the audio up on our website, and it'll also go probably on YouTube and iTunes, we'll put the website on it and your contact details, if that's okay, and people can get in touch with you if they want to know more.
That would be great. And it also, I don't know if I could suggest a site where people can get some of our free meditations.
Sure.
Or I can do that.
Yeah. We can, when we put the link up, just do a comment underneath it and put all those links in there.
Great. Okay.
So we'll do it on the Facebook.
I have a couple of children's meditations on that site, free, as well as a bit of music and an adult one, and some more will be coming. So I know you've got great meditations on your site too for adults, but there's not a lot around for kids. So just another suggestion.
Yeah, we do sell a wonderful CD in our post office at St Mary's that you recorded for children many years ago. It's lovely.
Yes, thanks, Sue.
Paul, breathe. Call in and pick one up. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to say before we?
No, I think we've covered. I think everything I wanted to say. Just yes, thank you.
Actually, we might just.
Thank you.
Did we cover what is the main problem that kids are experiencing now? In case people listening have the same common problems, is it anxiety, fear, or?
I would say it's anxiety and anger. Most kids are referred to me to work with anxiety and anger, and I see that in the schools as well, so across the board. But I don't generally sort of target that presenting issue. I know that underneath anxiety and anger can sit a whole range of emotions or, sort of history, events and things like that are coming out, spilling out in behaviour, which is just an indicator there's a calling out for help or healing. So, but anxiety and anger would be the two, I think, that I see consistently. And they're in adults. The two things are also presenting in adults as well.
Oh, okay. That sort of sums it all up. I would just say thank you very much for joining us.